Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment purposes.
What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved action stars sits down for what should be a friendly interview, only to face an unexpected ambush that pushes him to his absolute breaking point? Today, we're diving into the explosive moment when Jackie Chan went head-to-head with Joy Behar in a confrontation that left the entire studio speechless, and viewers around the world picking sides. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when respect flies out the window. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments who you think was in the right here. Because trust me, you're going to have some strong opinions by the end of this. The morning started like any other at the View studio. Jackie Chan had been booked for what was supposed to be a standard promotional appearance for his latest film. The martial arts legend walked onto the set with his characteristic warm smile, waving to the audience who erupted in enthusiastic applause. He'd done countless interviews over his decades-long career, charming hosts and audiences alike with his humble demeanor and infectious energy. Nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. "Welcome back to The View, everyone," Joy Behar announced as the cameras rolled. "We're here with the one and only Jackie Chan, action movie superstar and martial arts master. Jackie, thanks for joining us today." Jackie settled into his chair, adjusting his microphone with practiced ease. "Thank you for having me, Joy. It's always wonderful to be here with you ladies." The audience applauded again, and for a moment, everything seemed perfectly normal. Joy shuffled through her note cards, and Jackie prepared to discuss his upcoming project with his usual enthusiasm. "So Jackie, your new movie is quite the spectacle," Joy began, her tone already carrying an edge that made the other co-hosts glance at each other nervously. "But I have to ask, don't you think it's time to maybe hang up those action star boots? I mean, you're not exactly a young man anymore." The comment hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Jackie's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "With decades of media training. Well, Joy, I may not be as young as I once was, but I still have stories to tell and stunts to perform. Age is just a number when you have passion." "Passion," Joy repeated, her voice dripping with condescension. "That's one way to put it. But honestly, watching someone your age try to do the same moves you did 30 years ago, isn't it a bit embarrassing? Like watching your grandfather try to breakdance at a family reunion?" The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the light-hearted banter they'd expected from a Jackie Chan interview. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and the rest, looked visibly uncomfortable as Joy continued her unexpected assault. Jackie's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His hands, which had been relaxed on the armrests, slowly clenched into fists. "I think you misunderstand what I do, Joy. My work isn't about showing off or trying to recapture youth. It's about entertaining people and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in cinema." "Oh, please," Joy scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "Let's be real here. You're not pushing boundaries anymore. You're barely keeping up with actors half your age. I watched your last movie, and frankly, it looked like you needed a stunt double just to tie your own shoes." The audience gasped audibly at the viciousness of the attack. Whoopi tried to interject. "Joy, maybe we should—" "No, Whoopi. I'm just asking the questions everyone's thinking." Joy cut her off sharply. "Jackie, when are you going to accept that your time has passed? When are you going to step aside and let younger, more capable actors take over?" Jackie Chan had faced down countless villains on screen, survived thousands of dangerous stunts, and endured decades in one of the world's most demanding industries. But sitting in that chair, being publicly humiliated by someone he'd expected to treat him with basic professional courtesy, something inside him began to crack. "Joy," he said quietly, his voice carrying a warning that anyone familiar with his movies would recognize. "I think perhaps you don't understand the dedication and sacrifice that goes into what I do." "Dedication?" Joy laughed harshly. "Jackie, you're a relic. A museum piece trying to convince people you're still relevant. The only thing dedicated about your recent performances is how dedicated you seem to embarrassing yourself on camera. The other hosts were now openly cringing, with Sarah Haynes actually covering her face with her hands. The audience sat in stunned silence, watching what was supposed to be a feel-good interview transform into something ugly and personal. Jackie's breathing had changed. The easy smile was completely gone now, replaced by the focused intensity that had made him a legend. His voice, when he spoke again, was deadly calm. In my culture, Joy, we have something called respect. Perhaps that's a concept you're unfamiliar with. Don't lecture me about respect, Joy snapped back, her voice rising. You want respect? Earn it by knowing when to quit. Stop clinging to a career that's already over, and making everyone uncomfortable watching you pretend you can still do what you used to do. That was the moment when Jackie Chan's legendary patience finally reached its limit. Jackie Chan stood up from his chair with a fluid motion that reminded everyone in the studio exactly who they were dealing with. The transformation was instant and dramatic. Gone was the affable movie star, replaced by someone whose presence filled the entire studio with an electric tension that made the cameras seem to lean back on their own. You know what, Joy? Jackie's voice cut through the studio like a blade, each word measured and deliberate. I have spent 50 years of my life entertaining people around the world. I have broken every bone in my body, bled for my craft, and dedicated my entire existence to bringing joy to families everywhere. And you sit here, behind this desk, and tell me I'm embarrassing myself? Joy, for the first time since the interview began, looked slightly taken aback by the intensity radiating from Jackie. But her ego wouldn't let her back down. Jackie, sit down. You're being dramatic. This is television, not one of your action movies. Dramatic? Jackie's laugh was sharp and humorless. You think this is dramatic? Let me tell you what's dramatic, Joy. Dramatic is a 70-year-old woman who has never created anything meaningful in her life, sitting here attacking someone who has inspired millions of people across the globe. The studio audience was completely silent now, transfixed by the raw emotion pouring out of the normally composed martial arts star. The camera operators continued filming, knowing they were capturing something extraordinary. Joy's face flushed red with anger. How dare you? I have been in television longer than you've been making movies in America. I don't need some washed-up action star telling me about my career. Washed up? Jackie stepped closer to the desk, his movements controlled, but purposeful. Joy, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. When I was learning martial arts as a child, we were taught that true strength comes from discipline, respect, and humility. You clearly learned none of these things. Whoopi finally found her voice, trying desperately to regain control. Guys, let's take a breath here. We're all professionals. No, Whoopi, Jackie said firmly, never taking his eyes off Joy. This woman invited me here as a guest, and then ambushed me with disrespect. In my culture, when someone disrespects you in your own home, you have every right to defend yourself. Joy slammed her hand on the desk, her composure completely shattered. This isn't your home, Jackie. This is my show. These are my rules. And if I want to ask you tough questions about your declining career, that's my prerogative. Tough questions? Jackie's voice rose for the first time, and the power behind it made several audience members actually jump in their seats. Tough questions would be about my process, my inspiration, my experiences. What you're doing is schoolyard bullying, disguised as journalism. I'm a comedian and a talk show host. Joy fired back, standing up herself now, though she looked tiny compared to Jackie's commanding presence. I make observations about pop culture, and right now, my observation is that your has been clinging to relevance. Jackie's eyes narrowed dangerously. You want to know about relevance, Joy? Let me tell you about relevance. My movies have grossed billions of dollars worldwide. Children in countries you've never heard of know my name. I have inspired countless people to pursue their dreams and never give up. What exactly is your legacy? Making tired jokes and attacking guests who can't fight back? The other hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to try to intervene or simply let this explosive confrontation play out. The tension in the studio was so thick, it felt like the air itself might shatter. Joy's voice became shrill as she lost all pretense of professionalism. My legacy is 30 years of speaking truth to power and not letting celebrities think they can coast on past glory. Your glory days are over, Jackie. Accept it. Past glory? Jackie's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout could have. Joy, I did my own stunts yesterday. Yesterday. While you sat behind this desk making jokes about people braver than you'll ever be. I was hanging from a helicopter 300 feet in the air because I still believe in giving audiences something real. That's not brave. That's stupid. Joy shot back venomously. You're going to get yourself killed, trying to prove you're still 25 years old. Jackie stepped back slightly. A cold smile spreading across his face that sent chills through everyone watching. You know what, Joy? You're absolutely right about one thing. I'm not 25 anymore. At 25, I would have walked away from this conversation. At 25, I would have smiled politely and let you continue your pathetic attempt to tear down someone who has accomplished things you can't even dream of. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Jackie held up a hand that commanded instant silence. But I'm not 25, Joy. I'm a man who has earned his place in this industry through blood, sweat, and more dedication than you'll ever understand. And I'm not going to sit here and let you disrespect that legacy for the sake of your ego and cheap laughs from an audience that deserves better than this garbage. The silence that followed was deafening. Joy stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, completely unprepared for Jackie's devastating verbal counterattack. For once in her career, the woman who always had something to say found herself speechless. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Joy Behar, the woman who had built her career on never being at a loss for words, stood frozen behind the desk like a deer caught in headlights. Her face had gone from red to pale, and for the first time in decades of television, she looked genuinely rattled. Jackie remained standing, his presence dominating the entire studio. When he finally spoke again, his voice carried the weight of a man who had just reclaimed his dignity in the most public way possible. You know what the real tragedy is here, Joy, Jackie said, his tone now calm but still carrying that dangerous edge. I came here today excited to share my passion with your audience, to talk about the craft I love, the people I work with, the fans who have supported me throughout my career. Instead, you turned this into some kind of personal attack for reasons I still don't understand. Joy finally found her voice, though it came out as a weak croak. Jackie, I was just trying to ask challenging questions. It's what we do here. Challenging questions? Jackie's eyebrow raised in genuine disbelief. Joy. A challenging question would be asking me about the evolution of action cinema, or how I adapt my fighting style as I age, or what advice I'd give to young actors. What you did was launch a personal assault, disguised as an interview. Sarah Haynes, who had been silent throughout most of the confrontation, finally spoke up nervously. Maybe we should all just take a step back and... No, Sarah, Jackie said gently but firmly. I appreciate your intention, but this needs to be addressed. Joy crossed a line today, and pretending it didn't happen doesn't help anyone. Joy, desperately trying to salvage some control of the situation, attempted to regain her aggressive stance. Look, Jackie, if you can't handle tough interviews, maybe you shouldn't be doing press tours. The audience actually gasped at her audacity. Even after being completely dismantled by Jackie's response, she was doubling down on her attack. Jackie shook his head slowly, and when he looked at Joy, there was something almost pitying in his expression. You still don't get it, do you? This wasn't a tough interview, Joy. This was you trying to humiliate a guest on national television for your own entertainment. There's a difference between journalism and cruelty. "I'm not cruel," Joy protested, but her voice lacked any conviction. "Really?" Jackie's voice was deadly quiet again. "Then let me ask you this, Joy. What was the purpose of telling me I look like a grandfather trying to breakdance? What journalistic value did that serve? What insight did your audience gain from you, suggesting I need a stunt double to tie my shoes?" Joy opened her mouth, but no words came out. The questions hung in the air like accusations, and everyone in the studio knew there was no good answer. "I'll tell you what the purpose was," Jackie continued relentlessly. "It was to make yourself feel superior by tearing down someone else. It was to get a cheap laugh at the expense of someone who came here in good faith. That's not journalism, Joy. That's bullying." Whoopi finally managed to interject, her voice shaky. "Maybe we should go to commercial." "In a moment, Whoopi," Jackie said politely but firmly. "I want to finish this conversation because your viewers deserve to understand what just happened here." He turned back to Joy, who looked like she wanted nothing more than to disappear. "Joy, I want you to imagine for a moment that you're 70 years old, and you've worked your entire life to build a career and a legacy. Now imagine someone invites you on their show and spends 10 minutes telling you that you're a joke, that your best days are behind you, that you're embarrassing yourself just by existing. How would that feel?" Joy's composure completely crumbled. She slumped back into her chair, looking smaller than anyone had ever seen her on television. I didn't mean for it to come across that way." "But it did come across that way, Joy. And the fact that you didn't mean it that way just makes it worse, because it means you said all those things without even thinking about how they might affect another human being." The studio was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. The audience sat transfixed, watching one of the most powerful moments in talk show history unfold before their eyes. Jackie's voice softened slightly, showing the compassion that had made him beloved by millions. "Joy, I don't know what happened in your life to make you think that kind of behavior is acceptable, but I genuinely hope you figure it out. Because the person I saw today, the person who attacked a guest for no reason other than her own amusement, that's not someone anyone should aspire to be." Joy looked up at him with something that might have been shame flickering in her eyes. "Jackie, Don't apologize to me, Joy," Jackie said, raising his hand. "Apologize to your audience. They came here expecting to hear about movies and martial arts, and instead, they got to watch you try to destroy someone's dignity on live television. They deserved better than that." With that, Jackie turned away from Joy and looked directly into the camera, his voice returning to the warm tone his fans knew and loved. "To everyone watching at home, thank you for your patience during this uncomfortable moment. I hope my next interview will be more focused on the things that really matter, like the incredible stunt team I work with, and the amazing fans who make this all worthwhile." He began to walk toward the exit, then paused, and looked back at the panel one final time. As Jackie disappeared backstage, the cameras captured Joy Behar sitting in stunned silence, her usual bravado completely shattered. The other hosts looked around awkwardly, unsure how to proceed. The audience sat in complete silence, processing what they had just witnessed. For the first time in The View's history, a guest had walked off the set not in anger, but in triumph, leaving behind a host who had been completely outclassed in every possible way. Jackie Chan had reminded everyone why he was a legend, not just in martial arts and movies, but in grace under pressure and the power of standing up for yourself with dignity intact. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Was Jackie Chan justified in his response? Or should he have handled Joy Behar's attacks differently?